This weekend, M. Night Shyamalan drops his latest thriller in theaters. So today we're going to stop and rank all 13 wide-release M. Night Shyamalan films from the worst to the best. Hey, if you're stopping by for the first time, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of M. Night Shyamalan's films. I only included his movies that were wide released and he directed. He's worked on other projects. If you would like to include them in your ranking, go right ahead. One more thing before we get started, this video is brought to you by NordVPN. In M. Night Shyamalan films, he takes people, puts them in environments where they feel safe, and then reveals there's some secret danger that people weren't expecting. That's a lot like the internet. You think you're browsing safely, but in fact, websites, businesses, and hackers are trying to collect your data and use it for their own benefit. You don't want the plot twist of your life to be that someone has stolen your information. That's why you need NordVPN. A VPN secures your data by encrypting it and routing it through a remote server so people can't snoop on you. NordVPN protects your data while you're traveling or in public with their super fast servers. They offer double encryption to make your data doubly secure. If you're unaware, streaming services like Netflix have different movies available in different countries. NordVPN allows you to choose where you're browsing the internet from so you can access the different libraries that are available in other countries while still being safe and secure. Go to nordvpn.com/Sean Chandler or use code Sean Chandler to get a 2-year plan plus a bonus gift with a huge discount. The link is in the description and use coupon code Sean Chandler. And let's get started. In last place is Lady in the Water. Now, he's made movies that are boring, that have bad ideas, and where he fails to execute the concept properly. Lady in the Water is guilty of all 3 of those sins, but he adds to it being pretentious and being self-indulgent. Now, I can accept that he wanted to make a movie where story archetypes turn out to be true, and then he just kind of dropped the ball on the execution. I'd be okay with that. What I'm totally not okay with is him writing himself into that movie as the most important author ever.
Will become leader of this country and begin a movement of great change. Your book will be the seeds of many of his great thoughts.
And writing a movie critic as a character in the movie that's the most arrogant character in the entire film, who gets everything wrong, that's a doofus, that is killed in a humiliating fashion. Like, that is so unbelievably self-indulgent that I can't believe that that was funded.
Not impressed.
It's well documented by M. Night and others that he had a big falling out with Disney over the making of this film. They kind of questioned some of his decisions, so he didn't appreciate that. So he left and he went to a different studio to make the film. Well, as it turns out, Disney was right to question a bunch of his decisions, because this movie does not work. I don't find it entertaining. I don't find it insightful. I do find it very pretentious and self-indulgent, and that simply doesn't sit well with me. Also in last place is The Last Airbender. Now, this is a truly bizarre film for 2 reasons. First off, it has absolutely no signs of any of M. Night's trademarks when it comes to his writing or his directorial style. It just feels like a conveyor belt franchise studio film. Second reason it's bizarre is because they attempted to take all of the plot lines of an entire season of a TV show and squish it into a runtime of a movie that's less than 2 hours long. And you can't do that. This feels like he wrote a script for a movie that was like 3.5 hours long, and then they shot it, and then in the editing room, they just squished and condensed the entire thing into about 1 hour and 45 minutes.
Not a great plan.
Like, there's entire subplots that are told using voiceover and montage. They'll go to a place, and then it just skips through the entire thing like it's just rushing from plot point to plot point. All the dialogue in the movie has to be exposition because it just has to set up the next character arc, the next plot point to get to the next location, and characters just appear and disappear in different places because the plot requires it to do so, and there's no time to stop and breathe and set anything up when you're rushing through so much stuff in under 2 hours. There's just absolutely no spark of life in any of it. The acting ranges from awkward to awful. It feels like the polar opposite of the deeply personal and meticulously crafted films that made M. Night a famous director. Number 11, After Earth, an incredibly dull and generic sci-fi adventure that seems to horribly misuse the talents of both Will Smith as well as M. Night Shyamalan. At its core, the movie exists as essentially a vanity project for Will Smith, where he was trying to make his son into a movie star. And for some reason, he went for M. Night Shyamalan, who's known for directing small, slow-paced thrillers with a big twist ending, to direct this big sci-fi adventure project for his son.
Why?
This seems like the perfect type of movie for a totally different director to make. The other huge miscalculation here is Will Smith's character. Will Smith might be the most charismatic and likable actor of the last 30 years. His character in this movie is intentionally designed to be emotionally distant and unlikable and devoid of any charm. The polar opposite of what Will Smith is actually good at. And his son's character isn't made to be charismatic or all that likable either. And so you just spend a bunch of time with these two characters that aren't very much fun to be with on a generic sci-fi type adventure. And because we know that the movie existed because Will Smith was trying to make his son a star, once again, it just feels self-indulgent, puts a bad taste in your mouth.
How dare you!
Bringing us into the top 10 is Wide Awake, the forgotten M. Night Shyamalan film. Before he did The Sixth Sense, he did this 90s dramedy starring Rosie O'Donnell, and it doesn't feel anything like his other films. Kind of matches the tone of other family comedies of that point in time with the style of music that it has, only it's not really all that funny, and not just because it stars Rosie O'Donnell. It's a movie that I don't really know who it's for or exactly what it's going for, because it's about a fifth grader processing the death of his grandfather and going through an existential crisis of faith. And so it has all these ideas that adults can resonate with, but it's told from the perspective of this fifth grader, so it feels very childish in nature, but it's not really a movie I would want to show to my children of that age because they're not having an existential crisis of faith. It's made more competently than the films lower on this list, but it just isn't a movie I would want to rewatch. I don't get much out of it. I don't find it particularly entertaining. So it's interesting that it exists, but it's just kind of there. Next up, The Happening. For me, this is an M. Night Shyamalan movie that falls into that category of so bad it loops back around and becomes good. To me, this is a very watchable film while not necessarily being a quality film. There are some aspects to the way the story plays out that I find engaging and interesting. I get invested in the journey going all along the way. But from beginning to end, there is just some absolutely bizarre choices when it comes to how M. Night Shyamalan visualizes what's taking place and the acting choices. Like Mark Wahlberg has the Mark Wahlbergism sliders cranked all the way up to 11 in this movie.
What? No.
And then there's some of the death sequences that are so on the nose and in your face, they play out like a bit from a Monty Python sketch or something like that. In particular, some footage from a zoo where someone gets killed. It's just so on the nose that you can only laugh at what you're seeing. So for me, this is a very entertaining film. Not particularly good when it comes to the execution, though there's some ideas that I did enjoy in the mix, but there's some awful ideas in here as well. So a real interesting, weird mix for him. At number 8 is The Village. After The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and Signs, M. Night Shyamalan had become one of my favorite directors. So The Village was one of my most anticipated films of 2004. I went to go see it opening night, and I was so disappointed by this film that I didn't watch any of his new films until Split came out over a decade later. Now, it's a very professionally made film. There's plenty of gorgeous shots. The cast here is pretty phenomenal, and it doesn't have any of the incompetence of the lower films on this list, but it's a movie that exists entirely for the twist, and there's no deeper story or character exploration or themes that resonated with me at all. The first 50 minutes of the film is all set up for this trip through the woods, but the twist absolutely is not worth the trip. This for me was when it started to feel like M. Night was trying to force twist, and he's starting with the twist and trying to build a story to it rather than having a comprehensive story where the characters, the story, and themes all come together with this twist ending. This just felt like him misdirecting the audience for an hour and 40 minutes so that he could deliver a twist at the end. It's a movie where the twist makes the entire thing feel hollow and pointless, an intentional facade to trick the audience so you could try and come off as clever in the final moments. Number 7, Old, the latest M. Night Shyamalan high-concept thriller with the basic premise: what if people were stuck on a beach and very quickly aging? With that concept, it does have some really shocking moments, some body horror, some ideas that really get under your skin and make you uncomfortable as you think about what the implications of what just happened are. But also a movie jam-packed with clunky execution, characters you don't really care about, and another plot twist that feels like it came out of nowhere and didn't add any depth to anything that took place. It felt like the entire movie existed just to have shocking images and be like, ta-da, here's what was really going on. So by the time you get to the end, it just feels a little bit like a waste of a concept. I enjoyed it well enough. I was engaged enough with their efforts to escape, but by the end of it, it just felt so superficial that it wasn't satisfying. Then we have Glass. This is probably the most frustrating film on this list for me, because for nearly 20 years, I waited for a sequel to Unbreakable, and we finally got this movie where we got to see what David Dunn was up to. I absolutely loved those moments. Once again, James McAvoy just tears up the scenery with his ability to transform into all these different characters. Samuel L. Jackson is great as Mr. Glass. So in certain ways, it did deliver what I wanted from a follow-up to Split as well as Unbreakable. And then we move into the third act, and I simply think this movie absolutely did not stick the landing, did not respect the characters, and delivered something that subverted my expectations, but absolutely did not deliver something more satisfying than what I was expecting. He tried to deliver this unexpected victory, and I think it absolutely falls flat. The twists kind of felt like they came out of nowhere and weren't set up anywhere earlier in this film or in the previous films. And most importantly, it just wasn't a proper treatment of the David Dunn character. And so it leaves you with such a bad taste in your mouth, with such a small sense of victory in the final couple of moments, that for a movie that does so many things I enjoy, it disappoints me far more. Kicking off our top 5 is The Visit. After a decade of doing vanity projects for himself and vanity projects for Will Smith, M. Night returns to simple storytelling, a high-concept thriller with the appropriate thrills, a good twist that fits the movie that he's telling, and solid entertainment value. M. Night Shyamalan has attempted movies where he swung for the fences and knocked it out of the park. He's done movies where he swings for the fences and strikes out. And with The Visit, this is him just trying to get a solid double. And I think he does it with this film. As the movie goes along, it gets weirder, it gets creepier, the tension gets ratcheted up until you get to the point in time where you have the big twist reveal. It makes sense in the concept of this movie. It cranks the tension way high up in the air, and all along the way, the movie delivers entertainment. The thing that's easy to forget about this movie is that it might be the funniest M. Night Shyamalan film, where you have these kids that do a bunch of funny things, make jokes that add just the right entertainment value between the scares and the thrills. It's appropriately weird at points in time. It can be off-putting, like the chocolate pudding in the kid's face, but it works as a whole for me. Number 4, Split. Now, this is a good enough thriller anchored by a fantastic lead performance and a great final reveal. Kevin Wendell Crumb is one of these characters designed to let a great actor just tee off, and that's exactly what James McAvoy does. He shows his ability to transform himself into all these different characters, and he elevates the entire film because he is so good. Casey is written to be just competent enough to be interesting without coming off like she's unbelievably prepared to be in such a specific situation. And the final reveal that this was in fact in the same universe as Unbreakable blew my mind when I first saw it in the theater. I can't think of too many times where a movie has actually shook me like that as I left the theater, just so pumped to see where something was going. And I can't believe the studio actually let him keep it a secret that this was a follow-up to Unbreakable. Now, the actual story itself is pretty by the numbers, captive thriller type story. I didn't think the psychiatrist lady was all that interesting. Every time it cut to her, I think it loses some momentum. To me, this is a movie where the central performance and final reveal are so good, they just overshadow all of the rest of the film. Real quick, before I give you my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comments section. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. Also, I've done a bunch of these director rankings, done Fincher, Nolan, Tarantino, Favreau, and a whole bunch more. You can check that out in this playlist when this video is over. In third place, Signs. To me, this is possibly M. Night Shyamalan's most accessible film, as it is about an alien invasion. It has plenty of thrills, but it also has a nice sense of humor and a bunch of drama and characters that you actually care about. So there's a little bit of something for everyone. One of the things I think makes this movie stand out is that we have so many movies about alien invasions where we see cities blown to pieces, we see the all-out war, and this is just about this one family trying to stay together. I know some people hate the twist.
Well, agree to disagree.
I personally have never had a problem with it, and I think if you can get past the twist, it's a fantastic story about a family falling apart over this tragedy in their family where this man loses his faith and it causes him to start lose his humanity. And through this journey of the alien invasion and accepting that this is taking place, he processes through that tragedy and rediscovers his faith. I think it's profound. I think it's moving. It's entertaining. It has great thrills. The performances are really good. I think it delivers on almost every level, and in certain ways might be M. Night's most thematically rich film. Our runner-up, The Sixth Sense. Now, this is the movie that put M. Night Shyamalan on the map as a talent to watch. It's a beautifully crafted and constructed film where every shot, every scene is meticulously put together to develop the characters, progress the story, and set up a fantastic twist where the movie totally makes sense on first viewing. But once you know the twist, you can reinterpret virtually every single scene, and it has all kinds of new meanings and explanations. Now, some people have written the movie off as just being a one-trick pony. It only works the first time, and once you know the twist, the movie doesn't really work anymore. I would totally disagree with that. If you remove the twist from this movie, you have this great character study about this man dealing with his failures and regrets and the consequences of it, and trying to redeem himself, find his purpose and confidence through helping this boy. Each of them need one another, and by the time we get to the end of they're better because of the journey. And then the twist at the end just ties everything together, gives it new meaning. When I watch this movie, it's confusing to me that over 20 years ago, he had the talent to make such a detailed, thoughtful film, and then over the last 15 years has delivered so many movies with such bizarre, lazy execution. This is a great movie the first time you watch it, as well as the 10th time you watch it, and I think it's aged incredibly well. But in first place is Unbreakable, M. Night Shyamalan's superhero film, where instead of focusing on the spectacle, he focuses on the characters and what drives them. And because of that, I think this is one of the most emotionally resonant superhero films of all time. I've always been drawn to origin stories and character arcs about finding purpose and identity, and that's what this is all about. What if there was this remarkable person that did not know that about themselves? What would that do to the person? And the score perfectly captures the tone and the journey that David Dunn is on. It can be melancholy, it can be heroic, it can be victorious, all while smoothly transitioning between all of these emotions. The performances across the board are all fantastic, and to me, this is a perfect example of a great M. Night Shyamalan twist, where when you get the final reveals of this movie, causes you to reinterpret everything that you saw before while giving it new meaning and paying off the character arcs, the plot, and the themes in such a powerful and satisfying way. It's not a movie about a superhero doing a bunch of big, gigantic things. It's a story about a man discovering that he's special and what his purpose is. And that to me just resonates on such an emotional level. So this movie comes in at number 1. Remember, if you want to surf the internet safely, the link is down below in the description to sign up for NordVPN. Or if you want more videos like this, check out that playlist over there with my other director rankings. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.